Hey guys, welcome to 6 Minutes for Thursday, September 29th. I'm Jason Fulmore, SE Wrestle, and I just had the opportunity to speak with Coach Jason Guyton. Coach Guyton runs Guyton Wrestling up in North Alabama. But if you didn't know, this weekend he is being inducted into the Howard University Hall of Fame as a result of his time at Howard, competing at Howard in the 90s. So we talked about a ton of different things, from him growing up in St. Louis to getting started into wrestling, going to Howard, watching the program get dropped in the early 2000s. We make mention, or we touch on the Beat the Streets initiative in St. Louis with his younger brother. We talk about a ton of different things. It was a great conversation, and he's being inducted into the Howard Hall of Fame tomorrow, which is such a fantastic honor. I will be up in Michigan this weekend at the Grappler Fall Classic. Make sure you tune back in on Monday for any information I have from the tournament. And I hope you enjoy my conversation with Coach Jason Guyton. Coach Guyton, man, it's been a while. How are things?
Busy in my neighborhood.
Busy in your neighborhood, but well, I guess you're in your old neighborhood right now, right? Are you up in DC?
Yeah, I'm in Greenbelt, Maryland, which is about 20 to 25 minutes from Howard University. And I'm actually inside of Martin's. And Martin's is where the Hall of Fame ceremony will be tomorrow.
Right. So I didn't make mention of it yet, but that is why we're having this conversation, because man, it's got to be so awesome. You are going to be inducted into the Howard Hall of Fame, and what was that call like when you first got it? Like, what were the letter like to let you know that you were going to be inducted? How'd you feel?
Uh, it was tears. I just to be honest with you, I have a story. And I've been through a lot of ups and downs, even, just from life and wrestling and things of that nature. So um, when I saw that announcement come through back in late February, early March, and when I saw it posted, because sometimes you'll get information. So you're like, well, let me see it posted. And then when I saw it posted, I was like, this is real. But tears were the initial reaction because I was proud.
Yeah. No, it was so cool. You well, I want to kind of get to the induction ceremony and what it means to you and all that. But let's start way back in time and talk a little bit about the background, like how you got into wrestling, St. Louis, all that jazz.
Um, so I had of course, my mother and my father, they're pioneers with the St. Louis wrestling movement, Eddie and Debbie Guyton, and not just really St. Louis, but the Missouri wrestling movement, Eddie and Debbie Guyton. My dad wanted to box at a place called Tandy's Gym in North St. Louis. And he came up during a different time to where you had to have, permission. And sometimes there were fathers that were all for you being in sports. Sometimes there were fathers that were all for you working. It just depended on what type of family dynamic that you were in.
Sure.
Uh, my granddad felt that my dad should be working and should not be conducting sports. So my father didn't get the opportunity or permission he should have gotten in order to, be into sports. So my mom was a hard worker as well. They met at the same church, Livingstone Church of God in Christ, and off of St. Louis Avenue in St. Louis. And they had three boys, me, Jacoby, who also attended Howard on the wrestling scholarship as well, and then Jeremy, who actually went to St. Mary's in Kansas University. So um, my dad really, just from the dynamics of how he came up, how my mother came up, and things of that nature, he was like, look, we got to keep them busy to keep them out of trouble. So let's put them in every activity that they want to be in. So whether it was swimming, track, I actually got to do a cartoon class at the community college. Whatever it
Really?
was, yeah, yeah, it was. I was really into drawing when I was a kid.
Cool.
They put us into these items. So all of my brothers played football at some point, and I played for Raphael Mayweather and Matthew Dickey Boys Club, which is Boys and Girls Club, excuse me, which is renowned here. And I started getting into winning heavily, and with that team, and it made me want even more. So my dad heard of a coach by the name of Paul Lipinski. He's a Hall of Fame coach that coached at Riverview Gardens High School in St. Louis, Missouri. And he took us to practice and, basically was like, okay, let's see what wrestling does. Wanted to quit. Um, I wanted
Is
to
that
quit.
true?
Yeah, that's true. I wanted to quit because we grew up at a time where you had the WWF. So you had Hulk Hogan,
Right, right.
Junkyard Dog, all of these guys. And so uh, Paul Lipinski was a different type of coach as far as the fundamentals. And the fundamentals sometimes for a youth kid, I started when I was 11, are boring. So we're working on stance and getting the stance right and getting critiqued on why the stance is wrong, and so I'm wrestling matches and I feel like I'm losing just because I can't get a grips of the most simple things. So I was like, why am I doing this if all I'm going to do is just lose anyway? So I wanted to quit. And my dad did something pretty profound. He said, I'm not going to let you quit. The cliche, we finish what we start.
Hmm.
But he started getting involved in the trenches. He started learning the moves. He actually wrestled in high school, partially for Sumner and Beaumont High School in St. Louis, Missouri, as well. But he didn't have, like a lot of the fundamentals that were taught to him. So he started learning a lot of things from videos that he bought from Carl Adams, which was a big series back in the
Right, right.
day.
Yeah.
Dan Gable, of course, and from Paul Lipinski. And through his encouragement, I'm glad that I didn't quit or was allowed to quit, and that my brothers stayed in as well. And so we kind of like formed this wrestling family.
So at what moment did you like did it turn on and you're like, I'm pretty good at this?
Mhm. For me, it was late, to be honest, because so Jacoby, who's my middle brother, he
Hmm.
was all everything in sports. He was the type of kid, if you put track shoes on his feet, he was probably going to win the race.
Right,
If you gave him a football, he was going to score or throw for a touchdown. And then, Jeremy, normally the baby,
right,
in the family, which I don't like calling him that because he's a grown man, but they get, a little bit more, especially when the other two have moved out and gone on doing their things. But
right.
for me, it just was something in my brain where it was hard for me to get a lot of moves. So what I became a perfectionist on, if you want to call it that, was work ethic. I said, well, at least nobody that's at my weight class is going to work harder than me. Um, Nobody at my weight class is going to do more push-ups or just all the things, run and all these other things. And there was up and downs with that as well. But I would say my work ethic helped me with the wrestling process.
Yeah. So what is it what is it about like so you're finishing up school, you're a Midwest kid, you're sitting in St. Louis. This HBCU out on the East Coast says come on out and wrestle. What was it about Howard that like spoke to you about heading that direction?
Funny story. So I didn't know that Howard had wrestling when we started. I wrestled in what's called Missouri State Games after my junior year in high school. And they had a cool medal, and I wanted to win the medal. So my dad had to work. Yeah, it
I
was a
mean,
cool
that's an
medal.
honest response, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
they had a cool medal, and I wanted to win it, and I knew I could. So my dad had to work. My mom, took me to the tournament, which was in Columbia, Missouri. So that's a drive if you're coming from St. Louis. They had some family and things of that nature that went with us, and I had some things that was occurring during the tournament. One kid had taken X-Lax and basically exploded during the match.
Ooh.
And during that match, I asked the ref, if he was going to forfeit. He said no. I had to actually wrestle that whole match.
Ah,
So that
what?
was one part. Yeah, that was one part. I was probably kind of sick. The next part was just what I felt was unfairness as far as how some of the tempo was being dictated during the match. So, make a long story short, when the tournament ended, I had an attitude and I was unhappy about a lot of the things I had to endure during the tournament. And the coach at that time was presenting the medals and didn't give me my medal because of my attitude. So even though I had won the tournament, I wasn't able to get my medal. So I also heard the comment because I was displeased that with that type of attitude, I would never qualify for a national championship like I wanted to. And, if you're a Guyton, we're competitive. We play dominoes, cards. We're competitive at four square video games. Whatever
Everything.
it is, we're competitive. Dad, mom, brothers, cousins, whatever it is, we're all competitive. So when you tell us we can't do something, that puts a fire in you. So I was my senior year completed, state champ, undefeated. We had just won two consecutive state titles in a row. Talks of being nationally ranked, things of that nature. And I was still in the cable era back in 1994. So there was a new channel that came up that was called BET. And BET was showing a video by a group named Shy. And it was at the school called Howard University. So I had heard about
Ah,
Howard.
okay.
Yeah, I had heard about Howard from like history studies, and my dad pushed history lessons on us in the household just so that we would learn things about ourselves. But I had never seen the school like that. And it was a great music video. So I actually picked up the Yellow Pages and I called Howard, which, if you remember back in them days, you had to pay for long distance. It was on a
Yeah.
rotary or push button phone, actually. So I called and Coach Cotton picked up the phone and he was like, hello. And so I said, hey, I'm Jason Guyton and I want to know if you guys still have a wrestling program. So Coach Cotton actually ended the phone conversation. He told me he would get back with me. And he did some homework and found out who I was. So he called me back and basically said, I'll send you a national letter of intent right now if you're serious. Well, I was.
Right.
I saw a video that caught my excitement and I learned that they had wrestling. I just felt it doesn't matter where I go, nobody's going to stop me from reaching my goal. And sure enough, I signed the letter and I went to Howard University in the fall of 1994.
And as a freshman, qualified for the NCAAs. Is that right?
Yes,
I knew
which
you were a
that
two-time qualifier. I just wasn't sure if you did it as a freshman or if it was what years it was.
it was 1995 and 1997. So 1995, it was at Carver Hawkeye Arena,
Hmm.
and of course, University of Iowa. In 1997, it was at the Dome of UNI,
You and I,
University of
yeah.
Northern Iowa.
Hmm.
So those were great tournaments that I was able to qualify for. So backstory with that is, in order to be a national qualifier at that time,
Hmm.
you had to win your conference and then you also had to win to guarantee a spot the NCAA Eastern Regional Tournament. So you had to win basically two tournaments in order to get one spot. If you lost in, let's say, the finals, you could get voted in, but it was up to the judging committee.
Right, right, right.
So, as a freshman, I was able to win the MEAC title. I went
Hmm.
undefeated as far as the HBCUs, and then I was able to beat the defending qualifier, who went to Slippery Rock University. I actually wrestled him twice. He beat me my sophomore year in the finals, so I was a three-time finalist. So he had qualified as a sophomore. Then I qualified as a freshman. Then he qualified again as a senior. So we had like a small little rivalry,
Rivalry, yeah.
and
Hmm.
that hurt because when I lost, that tournament was at Slippery Rock. So that
Oh,
was, in front of his home crowd. That was a tough one that I had to take on the chin. I had to get that back. But doing it as a freshman, I mean, it was outstanding. But remember, the motivation came from what happened pretty much at the Missouri State games.
yeah.
So I was like, I can do this. But it was a lot harder than it looked because the way that we were set up, Howard was really at that time a football and basketball school as far as athletics, and also um, as far as soccer. A lot of people don't know, but Howard actually won a national championship back in the 70s.
So,
So
so I actually know that because one of my high school teammates went to Howard to play soccer at Howard.
nice.
Yeah, so I knew they were really good in soccer. So
Yeah,
anyway, continue the story.
their soccer program is outstanding. It always has been because they get players from across the world.
Right.
So at it. So I just looked at Howard as it's the Mecca. So if it's the Mecca in wrestling is wrestling at Dan Gable's house. It was Carver Hawkeye Arena. So my first tournament where it finally woke up, I wrestled at the Naval Academy. I forgot who I was wrestling, but I was out of position and I got slammed on my neck and I
Oh,
got knocked out.
oh,
So I woke up in the hospital up there in Annapolis, and I was basically told, "Do you really want to do this D1 wrestling stuff?" So when I went back to Bird Gym and to the room and to the weight room that we had, I made a decision at that time. I said, I am going to be super focused on figuring this out, getting myself together and motivating myself. Well, the special part, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, is with that came a lot of teammates that bonded with me and bonded with each other with that same fire, to where not only was I able to qualify and win the conference, as a team we won the conference, and our
hmm.
coach, he won coach of the year, and then at that tournament I won most outstanding wrestler. So we're both getting inducted into the Hall of Fame at the same time.
Oh, I didn't
Me,
I didn't know that. Okay.
yeah, me and my whole team from 1995. So it's a pretty special moment as far as that little motivation and how it spread into everything that took place.
So I want to take you to a time when you have these highs, and Howard has these highs in the 1990s, and then we turn to 2000 and the early 2000s, and the program gets dropped, right?
Yes. So I
So,
kind of got rumblings about that in the 1997 fall and
oh, that
98.
early. Okay.
Yeah. To where it was some decisions that were being made. And basically, and I want to say this in a way to where it's taken correctly.
Okay.
There was a legislative body that decided on Title IX. Title IX was the gender equity
Mhm.
guideline that basically said, we've got to have fairness as far as amount of opportunities for men as well as women.
Right.
Well, at a lot of schools, those schools were out of compliance on that. So Howard, at the time, the decision was made to drop wrestling, which as a 20-something-year-old, you don't get it and you really don't understand all of
Right.
those decisions that are being made. And I took it very bad. And I feel like my, wrestling career at that HBCU did not end the way I wanted it to. But, that was the rumblings. And then it actually not just happened to Howard, but it happened to all HBCUs.
Right.
Um,
Right.
it dropped from everywhere.
Right, and we saw that. I mean, the number of HBCUs that then kind of went away, and the programs kind of went away, um, was shocking. I mean, it was really. I mean, don't get me wrong. We've had lots of programs lost, regardless of whether they're HBCUs or not. But what I mean, I guess the question I have is that HBCUs, if you look at a series of them, and now with Morgan State coming back, have played a really special role in our sport in wrestling.
Yes.
So talk a little bit about that HBCU like initiative and what we're doing as far as trying to bring things like that back to the HBCUs.
So great question. So there's a lot of history when it comes to wrestling. Number one, a lot of people didn't know that Grambling State had a wrestling program a long time ago.
Right.
A lot of schools, a lot of the HBCUs had wrestling programs like in the 60s, 70s, 80s. Morgan State became the catalyst because of Coach Phillips and because of a guy that I was very fond of by the name of Charlie Morgan. Charlie Morgan became the popular guy in the 90s that had qualified for nationals. He was somebody actually that I was like, if Charlie Morgan could do it, I mean, that excites me. I think I can.
Yeah.
But a lot of people didn't know that Morgan State was so integral. Morgan State hosted NCAA Division II regionals. Morgan State has had NC2A Division II national champs. A lot of people
Mhm.
do not know that, and that's why the history part of it matters. So, fast forwarding to now,
Yeah.
Mr. Jones, Jai Jones, with the HBCU Wrestling Initiative. When he started, I started looking at some of the videos, and initially, I was hesitant because you know, it's a lot of history there, but it's a lot of pain. Not pain as far as ending because of Title IX. The answer, which in essence became a blessing to now, because no one knew that women's wrestling would get so hot. I think outside of pickleball, it's like in the
Yeah.
top five as
Yeah.
one of the hottest sports and genre of sports in the world. So no one knew that it was going to get that hot. So um, women's wrestling, now is a force to be reckoned with. So in my initial conversations that I had with Mr. Jones and up on the decision to start at Morgan State, number one, excellent choice because that is the school that was the catalyst of HBCUs. That was it when it came to HBCU wrestling was Morgan State. So it was very appropriate to start there. Then to go in the direction of Kenny Monday, to actually have a coach that not just wrestled, but wrestled on the highest level, has coached on the highest level,
Hmm.
has kids competing on the highest level.
Right.
And to make him and put him in that position and give him the assistance that is provided from gentleman Mike Novogratz and the different people that are
Hmm.
involved, um, I was very proud after I started getting a lot of the information, after I started having conversations, very sharp young man, and he's very committed to making sure that HBCU wrestling comes back. And I support him as he knows 110%.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think that from the outside looking in, you couldn't have started with, a better place. You've already made the case of a better place, the face and so on and so forth. Um, do you think it will start the ball rolling, and we have a shot at, Howard and other places in the future?
So what I'll say is stay tuned.
Okay. All right.
Um, I will say stay tuned. There um, is a lot of optimism that's on the horizon. And I would say, especially in the South, stay tuned.
That's good.
There's a lot of optimism.
For you,
So
for you and I, that's great, because we sit right down here.
that's correct. So I'll put it to you like this: with what they're trying to do, they're not just trying to be excited. Ooh, let's just start a wrestling program, right?
Right.
I think when it comes to not only men's wrestling but women's wrestling as well, we want those programs to be successful. We want them to be implemented properly, and we want them to be led by people that care, that want to do a great job, that want to hire a great team, and that really want to see this in the long term.
Right.
So,
So take those really judicious, important steps. Don't rush into it. Make sure that it's the right decisions going forward. It's basically
right,
what you're alluding to.
right. And then I also say nothing's perfect. There's nothing that's perfect when you look at Power Fives. Uh, there's always going to be highs and lows, mistakes, victories, things of that nature. But it's just having the longevity and endurance as far as seeing it all the way through. I'm seeing that take place right now. I'm proud of that taking place right now, and especially in regards to women's wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another thing to have a lot of optimism for in the near future. I think that it's going to be a perfect marriage for not just the sport, but also gender equity.
So one of the grassroots, you mentioned grassroots a couple of different times now. You're gonna share with us some information as it relates to a grassroots organization and kind of your hometown.
Yeah, so shout out to my youngest brother. His name is Jeremy Guyton. Jeremy also wrestled. So that's why I said we were a wrestling family. All of us were state placers. So I want that to be known in the entire household. We have over 15 or 20 plus state medals. But Jeremy ended up becoming, I would say, the best teacher of the sport. And not just teacher, but also he was the best at administering it to our youth. So Jeremy loves kids, and he's loved my children, my brother's children. If he's around kids, he just loves kids. Which is an exciting thing because sometimes for me it's a challenge. When you're coaching kids and things of that nature, it's not for everybody.
That's a
And
true
he's
statement.
Yeah, it's not for everybody. Dads, moms out there. It's not for everybody, but he has been probably the GOAT in comparison to us as far as implementing that. So Jeremy, it's getting close, probably 12 years ago. He started an organization really to keep kids off the street in what we call North City and North County, St. Louis, Missouri, which is an area that has a lot of problems right now. And he started St. Louis Warriors.
Yep.
Once it started with like 2 or 3 kids, and kids started coming and started learning, started participating. So, number one, they built a relationship with them just as far as seeing Jeremy's a college graduate, with finance degree. The high school graduate, as well, of course, and has success in the sport at some point. So he was a model to these kids to say, hey, I come from this environment. My parents poured into me, so now I want to pour into you and give you, some things and beyond, things I've learned that they didn't know, to enhance you. And so for boys and girls, they've been under his tutelage for a long time. And, from Super 32 champion, kids that have placed well Fargo, kids that have went on and wrestled in college. He's had that force to be reckoned with as far as the St. Louis Warriors for a while. So the ideas started coming, hearing about a program by the name of Beat the Streets.
Right.
Come along. So I am happy to announce that there is a launch committee. He is a part of that launch committee, as he should be. Shout out to Mike Powell and Ben. And that conversation is being had. And I am very excited about some things to announce, hopefully in the near future with that, as the real work begins towards bringing that to life. So, yes, that conversion to Beat the Streets St. Louis is in launch stage right now.
That's awesome. That's congratulations. And it's, if you've watched, wrestling and Beat the Streets of other cities, across the country, they've had such an impact. I know I interact with Gina Perry all the time on Twitter, and we talk about different things. And I'm super excited that you guys are, taking it on, and because it is an undertaking. It's not, it's not something that you just get handed. It's a lot of work that goes into that, and so awesome that you guys are able to have that impact, or continue to have that impact in St. Louis. So
I'll say this: I'm proud of Beat the Streets National and all the Beat the Streets organizations. We're going to actually have some special guests at the Hall of Fame dinner tomorrow. That I'm proud of being here, and when that information comes out, I think that a lot of people will be happy to hear that those individuals were there as well. But I will say this about Jeremy: probably one of the best teachers of technique and how to wrestle and how to not just apply it to the mat, but to your life, to your academics, to what you're doing in the community I've ever seen. And this is nationally.
yeah,
He's had that for a while. I'm very proud of him, and I'm looking for a lot of success from this launch committee.
very cool, very cool. Well, I want to finish up with one just last kind of question, or I don't know how to frame it. First, the congratulations about being inducted. Obviously, let's circle back to Howard and being inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Thank you.
And I think that the final question really has to do with kind of what sense of pride and kind of how you we talked about it at the very beginning, but I want to finish with kind of what it means to you that to be inducted. Not very many wrestlers are inducted into the Hall of Fame at Howard,
Yeah.
and you're going to be one of few. How does that make
Yeah.
you feel?
I'm trying to find out if I'm the first person from St. Louis in there as well. So if
There you go.
I
Right.
find that out, I'll let you know. But so one of the greatest things about Howard, and at the time that I went, because I was just coming out of high school, was it was a melting pot of different nationalities and things to learn. So my freshman year, I saw on campus with my own eyes Sean P. Diddy Combs, Biggie Smalls, and so many different people. Guru, who's a producer of a lot of Jay-Z's music, who's a Grammy award winner now. I remember in my dorm room listening to him mix up on a mixing board up on the higher floors of Drew Hall. So the excitement. Funny story. When I did qualify for nationals as a freshman, at the end of the match, you shake hands.
Right.
I was so excited because I won in double overtime. I actually ran out the building and ran outside.
Is that right?
So, yeah, they had to stop the finals, and my coach had to send somebody to come get me because I had to shake the guy's hands. So it was those type of things that when I walk across the stage at Martin's tomorrow, and then
Yeah.
when I go back to Howard this weekend for the different festivities that we have related to it, the pride comes from. I'm just a kid from North St. Louis. You know, as I would call
Hmm.
it, 157 Signal Hill, 6615 Mignon, like a lot of many other kids that came from there. And the pride is that hardworking dad and mom that gave me an opportunity versus the opportunity that wasn't given to them. The pride is that I used the opportunity and did something with it.
Yeah.
So it's really about, for me, my dad and my mom. I think really it's their award. Yes, they're giving it to me, but you have to see that whole story and that whole testimony as far as where all of that came from, and
Right.
that
Where you
starts with
started.
Eddie and
Right.
Debbie. Yeah,
Yeah. No
so
doubt.
that's a sense of pride to me. Of course, it's the Mecca, so I mean, there's nothing else really to say as far as it being the number one HBCU on planet Earth, and to be able to do that, during my time, I'm blessed, but at the same time, I'm humble, and it'll be a special night tomorrow.
Well, congratulations. It is well deserved. I'm just happy that we had the opportunity to sit down and have the conversation. And I'm not the first to extend a congratulations to you, but I'm not going to be the last one either. And can't wait to see you back down here in Alabama in a couple weeks, and we can talk a little bit about this Dirty South wrestling as well.
We training, man, and I'm gonna put this out there. Look out for Mason Ellis. That's all I got to say.
I think he already burst onto the scene for a bunch of people, but I know I heard you.